Welcome to the 49th Annual Chevron Texaco Conservation Awards. At Chevron Texaco, we know that success demands the highest standards of responsible corporate citizenship in our operations worldwide. Our approach to this responsibility is rooted in our core values, known as the Chevron Texaco Way. To conduct business in a socially responsible and ethical manner, support universal human rights, learn from and respect cultures in which we work, protect the environment and the communities where we do business. Each year, we pause to recognize and honor individuals and organizations whose work embodies these values. All have distinguished themselves by proving that the battle to preserve and enhance our natural environment can and must be won. Centuries of unsustainable harvest have brought marine turtles to the brink of extinction. Of the populations that remain, many are precariously dependent on coastal habitats, which are being developed at a rapid pace. Without the hard work and vision of people like Dr. Karen Eckert, these existing populations would be in even greater peril. As director of WIDEcast, the Wider Caribbean Sea Turtle Conservation Network, Karen has been very successful in bringing business, government, and scientific organizations together to prevent the extinction of 6 species of sea turtles.
In all of the known universe, there's only one living ocean, and it's here. We call it all different things, the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean, but there's only one living ocean. It's all connected. And all of us depend on it, ultimately, for our survival. And whether you think that sea turtles are important or contribute to the planet in any substantive way isn't really important. We can't just willy-nilly be removing cogs out of the wheel and expect this ecosystem to continue to function and support us.
Karen has a lot of special qualities that enable her to do the work that she's doing in WIDEcast. First, she's a great scientist. Secondly, she is a very good person with other people, and she gets the best out of people by listening to them, by learning from them, and finding out how they think the problems should be solved. This is key. If conservation is to be long-lasting, it has to start from the grassroots level.
Under Karen's leadership, WIDEcast has developed alternative livelihoods for communities once dependent on sea turtle harvesting and helped nations collaborate on eliminating poaching and illegal product sales.
Well, I met Karen maybe 15 years ago when we were negotiating a protocol, a specially protected areas and wildlife protocol to the Cartagena Convention on the Protection of the Wider Caribbean. And she came into the negotiations at a fairly advanced stage when we were looking at the species that we put on the list. And she came over as a very effective kind of behind-the-scenes expert, somebody who actually really knew what she was talking about, and made a great impression on the delegates and also on the outcome of the protocol, because the annex, which actually lists the species, now includes all 6 of the turtle species.
The WIDEcast policymaking process is one of interaction. When a question needs to be addressed from a scientific point of view, WIDEcast experts are brought in to facilitate the process. When a government wants to revise its fisheries legislation, when enforcement officers need to be trained, when policy needs to be made either at the community level, the national level, or the intergovernmental level, the regional level, it's a very good idea when you're dealing with biodiversity to bring in the experts and say, hey, if we were going to have an open season, when should it be? Or should it be a maximum size limit or a minimum size limit? How should we structure a protected area to make sure that we're getting the critical habitat? These are the kinds of questions, we ourselves don't make policy, but these are the kinds of questions that we try to answer for the policymaking community.
Karen's clearly seen who it is that's got to be brought on board, what their separate interests are, and how to effectively bring them together to a common purpose. And there are very few people who could have done that as effectively.
We can't change the basic biology of sea turtles. So let's see how much of this we can work into this giant puzzle, how many agendas we can make work at the end of the day and still reach our shared goal, which is that sea turtles will still be here 50 years from now. And so will we, hopefully living in greater harmony than we have in the past.
With great vision, resolve, and perseverance, Dr. Karen Eckert has succeeded in building a network across nearly 40 Caribbean nations and territories that are now taking meaningful action for sea turtle conservation. As ultimate testimony to effectiveness of this work, although endangered sea turtles in most parts of the world are declining in numbers, the Caribbean region is now experiencing a rise in sea turtle population. In the 1950s, conservation wasn't a commonly used term, and service learning wasn't a buzzword in schools. Then a student at Vassar College, Elizabeth Titus Putnam, combined both in an ambitious plan to restore our ailing national parks. This year, the organization that grew out of that thesis, the Student Conservation Association, will provide over 1 million hours of volunteer time to national parks and other federal, state, and local organizations.
There is so much work that needs to be accomplished locally, statewide, national, international, on our public lands, and the only way we're going to have them, these lands, is if we each take a role in doing something about it.
Since Liz launched the SCA in 1957, about 45,000 young people have volunteered through its programs, providing conservation services in our national parks, forests, and urban spaces. That's 45,000 alumni who have contributed to the natural world and been rewarded by self-fulfillment.
I felt that I was giving something to the national parks and the natural world, and helping to protect it. And at the same time, I was also getting, really in a way, a very spiritual, sort of a spiritual experience or a personal experience that sensitized me, I think, to the natural world, which growing up in suburban New York, you just don't necessarily have.
Ethics, particularly conservation ethics, start when people are young. And I think the SCA is a great vehicle for people to be involved, to be outside, to be working physically, and to have that conservation ethic go directly into your heart and stay there for the rest of your life.
I've learned the value of coming out here and working hard. I've learned the difference between working to get paid and working just for the pride of doing a good job, and I would definitely recommend SCA.
What Liz really did was demonstrate the power of a young person. A lot of people tend to think of young people as potential leaders or someone who eventually will make a difference. As a college student, she identified a real need. She understood the need to protect and preserve our environment. She understood the power of young people and their capacity when adults treat them with respect and engage them in meaningful service. And she understood that by working together, they develop the ethics and skills, not just for conservation leadership, but to be leaders and citizens in their communities and their nation.
If there is any one thing that all of us could emulate from Liz, it's that capacity and that determination to make that one idea happen. So when I get the chance to talk to young people, I say, don't ever, ever, ever dismiss your one simple idea.
And when you inspire the young, and when the young are inspired, it works both ways, because they can inspire other people, including myself, and to see and hear their feelings is truly incredibly motivational.
The results of Elizabeth Titus Putnam's work through the SCA can be seen both on a national and at the community level. It has been reported that more than 60% of SCA volunteers go on to careers in the conservation and education fields. Today, it is difficult to visit a national park, forest, or preserve without encountering one or more of SCA's alumni or current volunteers. In the state of Utah, as in many other states, population growth and the resulting urban sprawl threaten to overtake valuable open spaces and irreplaceable natural habitat. Through his work as director of the Nature Conservancy of Utah, David Livermore has succeeded in protecting over 1,850,000 acres of public and private land.
Well, I've been with the Conservancy for about 22 years, and here in Utah we've completed over 100 land conservation transactions and protecting over 850,000 acres of public and private land. Also worked for many years in Nevada, my early career, and actually another 1 million acres there of public and private land, and another 30 or 40 projects. So it's been a great career, but I tell you, it's all thanks to the wonderful team of people that I've been working with.
Dave's very successful at working with people. He's very thorough in what he does, and but he always does it in a very quiet, almost gentle approach to things. And yet there's always that passion and driving force in back of it that makes him accomplish what he does.
The key to preserving open space is finding common ground. Dave brings innovative win-win solutions to conservation. One of the Nature Conservancy's most effective strategies for protecting open land is to buy it from landowners who might otherwise sell to a developer.
Southeastern Utah is one of the most unusual landscapes in America, perhaps the world. Utah's red rock country. And right at the center of that part of the world is a dugout ranch. It's on the outskirts of Canyonlands National Park. It's an incredible country, a ribbon of green cottonwoods nestled beneath these large sandstone escarpments of red rock. It just takes your breath away. It's a spiritual country, and the dugout ranch is at the very heart of it.
One of the great challenges which Dave has to face is the message of preserving a balance between growth, which we recognize is important to be able to keep our children in our communities, and the need to preserve critical habitat. We work with communities to try to solve these problems by bringing people together and tapping into their feelings of a connection to this place and this land, which is so extraordinary.
What you're seeing here is the Great Salt Lake Shorelands Preserve. And we've been working on this area for almost 20 years, almost 2 decades. And it's a matter of stitching together key parcels of land, over 34 different tracts of land that we've acquired. The first one we acquired actually back in 1984. And we've just completed the visitor center here that will be open to the public, and a place for school children and teachers and civic leaders and the general public to come and learn more about the Great Salt Lake. I've been so grateful for the progress we have made, the points of light, if you will, the Stillwater Refuge, this Great Salt Lake Preserve, Dugout Ranch, Matheson Preserve, Strawberry River, the list goes on. And certainly our partners have been so helpful, and funders and members making these possible. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to do. And while I'm emboldened and excited by the progress, I'm still sobered by the work that still needs to be done to preserve these lands for future generations.
Dave has the unique ability to bring diverse stakeholders together by partnering with government agencies, businesses, conservation groups, and landowners. The Nature Conservancy is able to achieve uncommon results. Water is gold in the high plains states of America, and the Ogallala Aquifer is the treasure chest. It is also the final destination for the chemicals, pesticides, and other contaminants used by people. Lying beneath Nebraska and stretching more than 174,000 square miles from South Dakota to Texas, the Ogallala and several lesser aquifers act like a giant sponge.
One of the things we've learned about groundwater over the years is that the earth does not act as a natural filter. In fact, what human beings do on the surface of the earth often find their way into the groundwater eventually, even though it may take many years. As a result, there are lots of problems with groundwater quality throughout the world today. One of the problems that we're really dealing with here in the Midwest is the overuse of fertilizers, and this shows up as elevated nitrate levels, which can lead to some acute problems for young children, can cause a condition that really makes them very ill, and there can even be death from that. And we're not sure about all the chronic effects, such as elevated rates of Parkinson's disease or certain kinds of cancers. So the question then becomes, we need to be good stewards, and we need to be as preventive as possible, because once it gets into our groundwater, it's very difficult to clean it up and make it safe again.
Susan Seacrest began the Groundwater Foundation in 1985. for the purpose of educating the public about the nature and value of groundwater. From early days working from her kitchen table, the Groundwater Foundation has grown to become a national and internationally recognized organization, providing educational programs designed for people of all ages.
I think it's safe to say that the general public knows a lot more about groundwater because of Susan's efforts, and that's on a national scale, not just on a Nebraska scale.
The Groundwater Foundation's work with children may be its most visible educational tool. More than 35,000 4th and 5th graders have participated in the Children's Groundwater Festival, which educates children about the importance of groundwater. The festival's success inspired other programs, such as the Groundwater University, a water science summer camp for older children, and the Awesome Aquifer Club, a classroom-based program offering groundwater education.
Susan is on everyone's level. If you're the head of the CEO of a corporation, she can talk to you. She's recently spoken in Ireland to an environmental group, and I can see her at the festival with a small child, talking on their level, being excited about whatever idea that they give her.
One of the really rewarding parts of my work is that I get to, every once in a while, really connect with a young person on a real personal level and see that gleam in their eye when they really understand something for the first time, when they really understand that, you know, Grandpa's windmill is connected to that deep vein of water in the earth, and there's something that they can do to take care of it. That is very rewarding and very powerful.
She feels that if she can educate the youth, that these school children will take that information home and discuss it with their parents, and it'll be a grassroots effort, that if the children understand this at a very young age, they'll grow up with it, understand it, but also educate their parents.
Susan's ability to form meaningful partnerships, to build teams, and work with diverse groups of people to get things done has served the cause of groundwater very well.
With Susan, it was so important to me when I was director of natural resources for the state of Nebraska to have someone really interested in doing things, and someone from the public, because it's really important, as we need all the public support that we can possibly get.
The Groundwater Foundation, being educational in nature and not political in nature, really believes in being inclusive and working with a wide variety of partners, because we figure we're all in this together and we're all going to solve it together.
Groundwater Guardian is a program to support local leaders working towards safe and plentiful groundwater. Started in 1994 with 8 pilot communities, Groundwater Guardian has grown to include almost 200 communities in 37 states.
I think Susan has done a great deal to inform people of the importance of groundwater and its use, and that her legacy will be the number of people that will enter into the science field or interest of groundwater in the future.
Groundwater needs a human face, it needs a human voice, because since it's hidden, it absolutely is more in need than any other natural resources of a group of people that will stand up for it, speak for it, and help other people protect it.
The average North American young person can recognize over 1,000 corporate logos, but can't recognize 10 local birds, trees, and plants. Acclaimed Canadian wildlife artist Robert Bateman thought it should be the other way around.
I think it's very important for children to get to know the names of their wild neighbors of other species. But of course, I think it's important for their parents to do it as well, and for businessmen and politicians. And the reason it's important, if you don't know the names of things, we can't possibly protect biodiversity. You can't say you've seen one tree, you've seen them all. We really have to pay attention, and the only way to do that is to get to know your names, and that's the only way we can conserve.
Mr. Bateman's contributions to environmental conservation as an artist and educator are far-reaching. He is well known as a global spokesperson for many environmental, political, and preservation issues. His realistic paintings of the natural world are in constant demand, with major exhibitions in North America, Japan, the United Kingdom, and South Africa. Robert Bateman's work and the National Wildlife Week Writing and Art Contest that bears his name serves as an inspiration to children across Canada who are now learning about conservation and the natural world through artistic expression.
The Robert Bateman National Wildlife Week Writing and Art Contest started in a wonderful little town in the interior of British Columbia called Kelowna. And I was attending a wildlife week there and going around with a lady called Mary Krupa. And she said, what would be the most important thing if you could do one thing for children and nature and wildlife? And I said, clearly the most important thing is that they would get to know the names of their neighbors of other species. And then we started working through, well, how can we do this? Well, a writing and art competition seemed to be an interesting way to spread it all across the country, first of all across the province. And so we started this competition, and the winners are put into the calendar. So there are 12 winners, and the honor of winning means that you will have your art or your writing piece spread far and wide into thousands of homes.
With the invaluable support of competition organizers and participants, the results of Bateman's vision have been incredible. Last year, more than 42,000 entries were received. This year, 100,000 are expected from all Canadian provinces and territories.
There are so many forces that are wiping out our natural heritage and our human heritage in the 21st century. And things are happening so fast that we need everybody, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, chief executive officer, and homemaker and school child, to get involved with helping to reverse the trend and protect particularly our natural heritage. And so whatever your way of life, you affect the future of the planet in whatever you do.
At the beginning of the 20th century, there were more than 100,000 cheetahs, ranging across Africa, from the Cape of Good Hope to the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and across southern Asia. Today, there may be as few as 12,000. Loss of habitat, genetic problems, and conflict with ranchers in key range areas has combined to bring cheetah populations to dangerously low levels. The cheetah, says Dr. Lori Marker, is in a race for its life. And that race may begin and end in Namibia, home to an estimated 2,500 to 3,000 cheetahs, the largest remaining wild population, and probably one of the few that is sustainable.
Well, when I first came to Namibia in 1977, it was in the summertime here. It was about 110 degrees. It was very barren, very stark. And I questioned how anything could live in such a desert country. Farmers told me over and over that they were killing cheetahs like flies, and so my impression of Namibia was, why were people killing these animals that were so endangered? And that's, I guess, my impression is what led me back to find out what could be done and how to answer that question.
Alarmed by the decline of cheetah populations in Africa, Dr. Marker founded the Cheetah Conservation Fund, or CCF, in 1990, the first organization solely dedicated to saving the endangered cheetah.
I'm a great admirer of Lori Marker, and a lot of it is because of the qualities of person that she is. But she truly is bringing lots of different viewpoints together around a common cause around the cheetah. And that's a great thing. She's bringing zoos in this country to understand what's going on in Namibia. She has Namibian farmers understanding their role and what they can do with the environment there and how it all benefits and saves the cheetah.
Lori understands that the cheetah's survival depends on looking at the whole picture, the habitat, its ecology, and prey species, as well as farmland management. One of the more challenging issues has been the fact that farmers tend to blame cheetahs for missing livestock and shoot or trap them in response. Lori's solution has proven to be very effective. The Cheetah Conservation Fund began importing Anatolian shepherd dogs and raising them on the group's farm. These dogs live with the livestock herds and are capable of driving off predators like the cheetah.
In Africa, the cheetah is a predator, of course. Farmers who have livestock and who are afraid that the cheetah might be a predator on their goats or their sheep ask the Cheetah Conservation Fund for one of these dogs. Cheetah Conservation Fund gives an Anatolian puppy to any farmer who wants one. They are put into the livestock herds. the animal imprints on the livestock and literally will guard with its life those wonderful livestock herds that they've learned to love.
The thing I most admire about Lori Marker is that she thinks big. She doesn't say, okay, we're just going to do this one little thing and we're just going to do it right. She says, you know what? I need to be more entrepreneurial. We need to figure out how do we work with the rancher over there and get them involved so it's a win-win with them. But how do we also work with these native people and get them involved? How do we work with the president of Namibia, who's got a lot of things on his plate? Let's work with him too and make sure he understands. The next thing you know, all of northern Namibia is becoming cheetah-friendly ranches. It's the darndest thing I've ever seen. I wish she could pull that off for wolves out in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem the way she's pulled it off for cheetahs in Namibia.
Today, research shows that ranchers are increasingly tolerant toward cheetahs on their lands. There has not been a reported case of a cheetah taking livestock from any of the herds with an Anatolian shepherd.
Now, I think there will be cheetahs 100 years from now in Namibia, thanks to Lori Marker and CCF. But more important than that, she demonstrates, hey, here's how we're going to do this. We are not a fundraising organization. We are a cheetah saving organization. Sure, we need some funds, but we're effective and it's a success story. We're going to show you in measurable ways how we're protecting cheetahs.
Those honored here tonight are more than determined environmental advocates. They educate about the importance of conservation. They inspire us to devote serious time and attention to the natural resources we all share. They simply make our world a better place to live. And all of them reflect the values that Chevron Texaco deeply cares about. We are proud to honor this year's 2003 Chevron Texaco Conservation Award winners.